Have you ever stopped to think about how a single brand crafts one perfect message and then tries to make it connect with literally billions of people across hundreds of different cultures? That's the crazy tightrope walk of international advertising. Today, we're going to see how the biggest names in the game try to make it to the other side without falling.
I mean, really, how do you do it? This is the multi-billion-dollar puzzle every global company is trying to solve. If you get it right, you're a household name from Mumbai to Mexico City. But if you get it wrong, well, your message gets totally lost, or even worse, you become an international laughingstock. So where do you even begin?
Okay, to really get a handle on this challenge, we have to go back to the absolute basics of communication itself. Think of it like you've got this giant global megaphone. Before you can start broadcasting your message to the world, you first need to understand how the wiring even works, just to make sure people can hear you clearly.
All right, so this diagram looks pretty straightforward, doesn't it? A sender has a message, it goes to a receiver. Simple. But here's the kicker. See that little box in the middle there? The one labeled noise? Well, in international marketing, that's not just a little bit of static. No way. It's a huge, gaping canyon filled with cultural misunderstandings, language barriers, different values, all of it working together to scramble your message into something unrecognizable.
So let's say you've got your message. Now what? Where do you even put it? Because let me tell you, the global media landscape isn't some simple, straight highway. It's more like a massive, confusing maze, and every single country has its own unique paths and its own set of rules. Let's talk television, for example. You might think TV is king everywhere, but not so fast. In some countries, you can't even get full nationwide coverage. And then you have places where the demand for ad time is so insane, you could be on a waiting list for over a year just to get a spot. A whole year! And we can't forget about radio. You know, it's easy to overlook, but in so many large, diverse nations, radio is an absolute lifeline. It's inexpensive, it cuts right through any literacy barriers, and it can reach just about everyone. Just think of the incredible reach of something like All India Radio. It's a truly powerful national medium.
Then, of course, you've got newspapers and magazines. The awesome thing about print is that you can get super specific and target your audience, whether you're in a highly respected national paper or a global giant. The only problem? Your team has to sort through literally thousands of options to find that one perfect match.
And this is where that maze gets really tricky. It's not just about where you advertise, it's about what you're legally even allowed to say. Want to advertise 24/7? Nope, not in Belgium. Think you can just say your product is better than a competitor's? Better be careful in the EU. Want to advertise your product at all? Good luck if it's something like cigarettes in India. Seriously, every market is its own legal minefield.
So all of this, all these complications and differences, it all leads to the big central debate in global marketing. Is it better to create one single global ad campaign and just run it everywhere? Or should every single country get its own unique message? Is it one size fits all, or is it a custom job every time?
This debate really splits marketers into two main camps. On one side, you have the standardization folks. They believe that deep down, human needs are universal, so one powerful ad should work for everybody. Then on the other side, you've got the individualization crew. They say, no way, culture is everything, and if you ignore local differences, your ad is doomed to fail.
So you've got these two opposite poles, right? But like with most things in life, the real answer is probably somewhere in the middle. And that's where the compromise school comes in. They argue for the best of both worlds. Keep a consistent global message for your brand, but let the local teams tweak it so it really connects with the culture.
Okay, that all sounds good in theory, but how does a massive brand actually decide which way to go? Well, it's not a guess. There's actually a methodical framework they can use that guides them to the right decision for their product and their target market.
This framework is basically a checklist. A company starts at the top and asks a question like, is our target audience in this country different enough to matter? If the answer is no, they just stick with the standard global ad. If it's yes, they move to the next question. And they keep going down the list until they hit the most important question of all. Will the extra cost of making a local ad actually make us more money? If the answer is ever no, the model tells them to stick to the global plan.
So based on that framework, a company usually lands on one of 5 key strategies. For instance, they might use something called communication adaptation, where they sell the exact same product everywhere, but advertise its features differently. Maybe they talk about the camera in one country and the battery life in another. Or they might need dual adaptation, which is what a company like McDonald's does, changing both its menu and its ads to fit in. And in the most extreme cases, they might have to invent a whole new product just for one market. Of course, having a strategy on paper is one thing. It's out in the real world where these decisions have huge consequences. And it's so important to remember that promotion is way bigger than just a TV ad. It's sponsorships, PR events, sales promotions, the whole shebang. And any of these can go brilliantly right or spectacularly wrong.
This is such a classic story. At the same event, you had two sponsors. Philips played it smart, had a clear strategy, followed their own rules, and got a ton of positive exposure. It was a huge win. Reebok, on the other hand, well, they gambled big on a few star athletes whose teams got knocked out early. And then things got even worse, and they had to scrap an ad campaign because of a tragic real-world event. It's just a perfect example of how different the outcomes can be.
But even that story pales in comparison to one of the most infamous promotional disasters in corporate history. Back in 1992, Pepsi launched a bottle cap promotion in the Philippines that just spiraled into an absolute catastrophe. So what was the fatal flaw? A simple computer error. Instead of printing the winning number on just a few bottle caps, it was accidentally printed on hundreds of thousands of them. When Pepsi announced they couldn't possibly pay everyone the grand prize, the public response was furious. We're talking riots, lawsuits, and a potential liability of over $18 billion. A total corporate nightmare, all from one tiny bottle cap.
Wow. So after that whole journey through strategies, media mazes, and billion-dollar mistakes, what are the key lessons here? What do you really need to remember if you're trying to send a message across borders?
I think the most important takeaway is this. There is no such thing as a global consumer. It just doesn't exist. Every market has its own culture, its own media, its own rules. And while it's always tempting to just make one ad and send it everywhere because it's cheaper, it almost never works. You have to be smart, use a framework to decide how to adapt, and never ever forget that one ad is just a tiny piece of a much larger and much riskier promotional puzzle.
Ultimately, it all comes down to this really powerful idea. Success in international marketing isn't about projecting your own culture onto everyone else. It's about having the humility and the wisdom to really understand and respect the customer in their own world.
Which leaves us with a final question to chew on. In our world that's getting more connected by the second, are we slowly moving towards some kind of universal culture where one single global ad could finally work for everyone? Or are our deep-seated local identities just too strong, making that whole idea nothing more than a beautiful but ultimately impossible dream?